Welcome to Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. On this podcast, we journey through the devastating experience of the death of a child. Grief is seldom discussed openly in our culture, and the death of a child makes people feel even more uncomfortable. We approach the topic openly and honestly, speaking to people who have lost loved ones and experts who help care for them. Whether you are a parent experiencing loss or someone who wants to support another going through this tragedy, this podcast strives to offer hope and help.
Welcome to episode 162 of Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. I'm Marcy Larson, Andy's mom. Today, I am so excited to introduce you to my dear friend, Dixie. Dixie lost her son, Parker, both suddenly and tragically when he died playing baseball, the game that he loved so much. Dixie told me after we stopped recording that she is so happy to have been able to share Parker with so many people so that they could understand his amazing personality and all the wonderful things about him. And I am just honored to help her share Parker with many people. Remember, if you would like to share your story, you can certainly email me at Marcy, M-A-R-C-Y, at andysmom.com, because I love to hear stories. I love to help share stories. I do feel like by sharing these stories and by hearing these stories, we really help lift each other's burdens just a little bit. I hope that you feel that too. So for now, sit back and listen to Dixie, Parker's mom. Thank you so much, Dixie, for coming on the Always Andy's Mom podcast today with me.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited for everyone to get to meet Dixie today because I've gotten to know Dixie quite well now through our little support group that we kind of do, and it's been fantastic. And so I'm just honored that Dixie is willing to kind of tell her story and Parker's story to all of you. I just know you're going to love her.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so why don't you start out just by talking about your son, Parker?
Yes, well, Parker was born on August 7th, 1997.
Yeah.
And he was a preemie. He was 5 weeks early, but he was fine. He just had to learn to latch on, and they just wanted to make sure that his oxygen levels were good before they sent him home.
Yeah.
But he was healthy and got to take him home after 11 days. And then he grew very quickly and was extremely healthy, happy baby. He was fun and vivacious. I have another son who is 29 now. Okay. So he had an older brother. Uh-huh. And Zach was so excited to have a little brother. I mean, just thrilled. Yeah. They were 4 years apart.
Oh, I bet he was excited. Think about 4-year-olds.
So loving.
Yes. I love that. Mm-hmm.
And they were just so cute. And one thing about Parker is very early on, he had this just strong propensity towards sports. That was his thing.
Yeah.
And so like at 3 years old, he could throw a ball and it was like a rocket. And it was just kind of bizarre because I'm not athletic and my husband is not super athletic. He played tennis, and so we just were trying to figure out where he got this from. Both boys played sports, but Parker was just good at any sport he took on. And he was a swimmer also. As he grew, he started in swimming, and the coaches were amazed because even at a really young age, like 5, he would just watch people do things and he could do it. Like the flip at the end.
Yeah.
That they do. Well, the coach was like, I am so shocked because he said he only watched people do it. Then he got in, swam to the end and did the flip.
Wow.
And he said, I've never seen anything like that. And so he was a very good swimmer. He could they all had him in all the, different competitions. And we did swimming and baseball all the way through elementary school. Mm-hmm. And in addition to being sporty, he was super curious and very busy.
Yeah.
He was funny. really funny, and just a great friend. So in sixth grade, he had to pick kind of because, swimming, you have to kind of do that every day.
Right.
He was like, I'm going to pick baseball, Mom. So he picked baseball, and which was fine with me. I wanted him to do whatever he wanted to do. And so we became a baseball family. Both boys played baseball, but he was just so dedicated to it. And the other thing is, we discovered in second grade that he had dyslexia.
Okay.
It was so funny because we thought it was so cute. He would always say things backwards.
Yeah.
He wrote a few letters backwards, but that's not uncommon when they're young. But he would say things backwards. Like when he was hot, he would say, when he was really hot, he would say he was cold.
Okay.
And things like that. And we were like, oh, isn't that cute? But eventually we realized that there was something more going on. So he had dyslexia. And I just sat down and talked to him, and I said, you have dyslexia, which means you have to work a little bit harder than other kids. It doesn't mean that you're not smart.
Right.
And you can do just as well as they do. And you just have to work harder. You have to be more organized.
Right.
So we got him into tutoring, and he did all the things that he was told. He was so precious about it. And so anyways.
Yeah. Yeah.
He just, I'll never forget somebody, one day he was really doing something a lot of times dyslexic children are really good at something. I think sports might've been his thing.
Yeah. Right.
So I said, you're just doing so great in baseball. I mean, I just can't get over it, how well you're doing. Look at your hitting. And he'd say, well, Mom, it's because I have dyslexia. So I didn't want him to feel like he was less than.
Right.
And what I wanted him to understand was that effort is really important, So it's not about the smart kid or the kid who's not smart. It also can be about effort. And he really took that on. And so he was extremely organized, even going into middle school. I mean, he would pack his bag the night before. He'd have all his clothes laid out, and he kept a calendar, and he kept a to-do list. Extremely. His room was neat as a pin.
Wow.
I mean, he was just...
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
He always was working on what he needed to do to be better at things, and he never gave up. He just always kept striving.
Well, and I love how that attitude that he had about, that he was good at baseball because he had dyslexia, right? I mean, it was like, well, I can't do this quite as well. So that gives me room to be able to do this awesome. I mean, that's just a great attitude to have about it. Instead of a lot of times that you can get a little bit, especially in a middle school age kid, you can get that, oh, poor me kind of a thing. And he didn't have that at all, it sounds like.
He didn't. He would tell kids all the time, I have dyslexia, and it didn't bother him because he had other strengths, and we focused on his strengths,
right.
And he did actually end up doing very well in school. I mean, he was not an all-A student, but he did well.
Yeah.
So I was just super proud of how he took all that on and handled it so well.
Right.
But baseball kept progressing for him, and he wanted to play college baseball.
Yeah.
The other thing I want people to know about him is that he is equally a beautiful heart.
Yeah.
He was a very good person, like a kind person. He was very loyal and genuine. He was the type of person that he had a girlfriend for 6 years, and they met in middle school. Yeah. Wow. But he started dating when he was in 10th grade and she was in 9th.
Okay.
And he was very loyal. One thing she told me is that he would, if they were let's say they were at Walmart or something like that, he would literally, if he saw a woman struggling to get her things in the car, he would pull the car over, and she'd be like wondering what he was doing. He'd get out and go help her get her bags in the car. Oh. And he would run to the door to open it for people. And the other thing is that he was really close to my father, who passed slightly before Parker.
Wow. And
so my dad was 88. But Parker, they were very close, and he would actually call him every single morning during high school.
Really?
Every morning. And if he missed, it was unusual. And so they were super close.
Yeah, I guess.
So he kept with baseball, and he was just a buddy to me. He noticed details about people, He was the person everybody called about if they wanted to know what to give somebody as a gift.
Okay.
Or to stop at the store and get. I always noticed details. And I'll just never, it's just amazing to me, to be a teenage boy and to be like that.
Right. For sure. When so many are so self-absorbed. Yeah.
Yeah. He was just so sweet. And after he passed away, we got a lot of stories from people saying how Parker came to them and helped them in their times of need or sadness, and that was really a gift to get those stories. And I still get them sometimes.
That is nice.
So he played high school baseball, and he always invited us to the games. He never acted embarrassed or anything like that. He was always coming up to me after the games. I mean, just was a sweet, sweet, sweet young man, and a buddy to me, really, a sidekick in lots of ways. So, and his girlfriend as well. We hung out a lot. And all these boys were always at our house. It was like chaos all the time. I loved that. I loved the chaos and the noise.
Yeah.
And that's something a lot of people don't realize is that we went, because my older son was out and he was married and he has 2 girls now. But at that time, well, he went to college before Parker.
Right,
so
right.
He was going to college.
When Parker
And
went to
so
high
it
school,
was
right.
exactly. And so it was just chaos, and I loved it. And they don't understand that even when he went to college, he came home every weekend.
Oh, really?
And he was home as much as he could be home, even sometimes during the middle of the week.
This is Parker? Or Parker?
This is Parker.
Mm-hmm.
So we went from this really kind of energetic, vivacious, happy home to total silence.
Yeah.
And the silence is it's just so loud.
Yeah.
That
is true.
And I try to explain that to people sometimes because they'll say, well, wasn't he away at college? And I think, well, that doesn't make it any less painful.
Right.
So anyways, and in fact, during college, some of it, he lived at home because he went to one school that was close by, and then he moved home for a little bit and went to a small school. Then he decided, I want to get back into baseball, and he transferred.
Okay.
He did all that on his own.
Mm-hmm.
I never got involved in any of that. And I always supported his dreams. So anyways, he went to college, and but we spent every time we could together. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He just had a great heart, and he was just a good person, loving, kind, and very funny. I miss his humor so much. Yeah. He could make me laugh so much. Yeah. And he made me laugh at myself, which was a really good thing because I take myself very seriously.
Yeah, that is a good thing to be able to do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that was Parker. It is Parker.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for sharing, Parker. So why don't you talk about his baseball in college? Because that was super important to him, right? Yeah,
very important. Yeah, he went to that. So he went to a small college first.
Yeah.
And he liked the school, but, he didn't love it. And he was just wanting to kind of try something different. And he wasn't really sure if baseball was where he loved baseball, but he was like, I'm not sure if I should try to keep doing baseball because maybe I should just focus on school.
Right.
So he came home for a little bit and went to like a technical school.
Yeah.
And then just for a short period, and then he got his act together, but he was doing fine in school. He just wanted to figure out what he wanted to do.
Right. It's so hard, right?
It is. And I'll tell you, college sports is tough. They are tough. You really are dedicated to it, and you don't have a lot of time outside of that. So he was just trying to make a decision, but he missed it for the semester he was away from it. So he said, Mom, I want to go back to playing college baseball, and I want to see how far it'll take me. And I said, that is perfectly fine. So he starts emailing coaches, and he gets a couple of interests, and he decides to go to this one school that's about 3 hours from here towards the coast of South Carolina.
Okay.
And we were like, that's great. Go, enjoy, have fun.
A little bigger school than where he had been before then, or?
About the same size, probably. It was a small school.
Uh-huh.
And his hope was that he would do well there and transfer into a larger school and finish up.
Okay.
So he wanted to he said, I can't play pro ball. I'm not that good, but I would like to just play ball as long as I can.
Right.
And then maybe coach it or something.
Right.
So he even thought about being a sports psychologist. He was really interested in all that.
Right. Because your background is in counseling.
Yes. And so he loved the mental part of the game. So he transferred to this smaller school, but he was in his element.
Yeah.
He was loving it. He lived in a house with other ball players.
Yeah.
And some of them he already knew, and they were having the best time, and he was dedicated, and he just kind of just everything just kind of fell into place. He became the starting shortstop.
Okay.
He was getting involved in all kinds of things on campus. A leader.
Yeah.
He was a leader.
Yeah.
He was helping the younger ball players. In fact, they told me that every time he came to something, he brought another person along. So we have these wristbands. One of these sweet young boys had a band made that says his name, and then it says "Bring others along."
Oh,
Because
wow.
he just would say, I'm going to go. He practiced all the time. I mean, he just dedicated his whole self to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it paid off for him. That's what happened to him. He was the starting shortstop. We started going to see him play.
Yeah.
We saw him the weekend before he passed away.
Yeah.
He was perfectly healthy. He was vibrant. He hit a home run right when we arrived there. He hit a triple in the game. He was doing great. In between the game, there were 2 games, and he introduced me to all his friends, was just thrilled. He was thrilled. He was so happy.
Yeah. And
I kept staring at him. I kept looking at him because I kept thinking, and I know he was probably wondering what was going on, but I was staring at him thinking, you're so beautiful. I mean, he has these thick, bushy eyebrows and this dark skin and this curly hair. He looked like one of those old 1970s baseball players.
Yeah,
He had that kind of look. And I know I kept staring at him, and then he looked at me and I said, you're just beautiful. I just can't take my eyes off of you. And we actually had a picture made together, which I never did because I don't like how I photograph. So I said, I want a picture made with you. And we did. And we used that photograph a lot for different things to honor him.
Yeah.
Because it was the last weekend we saw him.
Yeah.
And he even came up to us and he said, thank you for coming to my game.
Oh.
And I was like, oh my gosh, where else would we be?
Right.
Right. He was just so, so kind. And that was the last time I actually was able to see him in person and hug him.
Yeah. What a blessing that weekend was for you.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
It was. It was.
Mm-hmm. So do you want to talk now about what happened then to Parker?
Yeah. So the next week we talked all the time.
Yeah.
But on Friday we FaceTimed.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the best conversation. And he did say that he missed my dad. He said, I miss Papa.
Yeah.
He said, I can't wait to see you this weekend at the games. I said, I can't wait to see you. And we joked like we always did.
Yeah.
Of course, we said we loved each other, and we quit FaceTime.
Yeah.
The next morning I went to work. We all went to work, and his girlfriend was in town and she went to her job. I think she was at her job. I'm not sure. Some things are fuzzy for me.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
I never went to lunch, very rarely went to lunch. I usually ate at my office, but that day I went to lunch.
Mm-hmm.
I went out to eat. And so I'm one of those people that if I'm with somebody, I don't really look at my phone.
Yeah.
And so I guess they had tried several times to get a hold of me. So I'm sitting there with my friend, and in walks my husband. And he looks panicked, and he said, we have to go. Parker has collapsed on the field. We have to leave now. And I said, okay. And so my friend said, I'll take care of everything. And I said, okay. And so we got in the car, and his girlfriend was already in there because they had actually contacted her first. Now, some ball players had texted her and said that they thought he was having a seizure.
Uh-huh.
So on the way, it's a 3-hour drive. I have to be honest with you. The last thing from my mind was that he was gone.
Right.
I thought, okay, he's had a seizure. I don't know why he would have a seizure, but we're going to find out. Right. We're going to get him to the best doctors.
Right.
And we're going to figure this out, and we'll be there. Maybe, it wasn't heat exhaustion, I didn't think, because it wasn't that hot. It was March 29th, 2019. Mm-hmm. And we are driving and trying to get there as quickly. And we're talking to different people. And you know how you get different information.
Yeah.
And finally, we call the hospital and where he's been taken. Now, we've been told he may be helicoptered to another hospital. So we're thinking, okay, we might have to change our plans en route.
Right.
And go to a different a different hospital.
Sure.
But we get about an hour and a half in there, and the doctor calls. And he says, are you driving? And we said, yes. And he said, can you pull over? And my husband threw the phone, and he said, no. Because we knew what that meant. And so we pulled over on the side of the road, And he told us, he said, I'm sorry, we tried everything. We worked on him for a long time, but we never got a pulse back. And I'm so sorry that your son is gone. And so all of us got out of the car, and we literally are on the side of the highway.
Yeah.
And we're crouched down. It's amazing what your body does,
Yeah.
We're crouched down on the side of the highway, just screaming and crying.
Uh-huh.
And we can't believe this is happening. And I can't imagine what it looked like from cars passing by, it was just and it seemed so surreal now,
Right.
we were just sobbing and crying. And then you have to figure out a way to get back in the car and keep driving,
Right.
And my husband's just clutching the wheel. I can picture that. And I'm crying, and I'm trying to I immediately went into letting people know, like my family.
Yeah. I did that too.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was thinking, I look back on that sometimes and I think, what? I don't know. I guess I was in shock. But,
yeah.
And I think part of you thinks there's going to be a different outcome. I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
and I always felt like too, I couldn't believe it. So I felt like I needed to say it, keep saying it, so that maybe a little bit of me would believe it. I don't know. But I started calling people like right away in the ambulance.
Yeah.
Seconds after, not even a minute probably after I was told. I'm on the phone with my best friend and my pastor and, like people.
Yeah. I think it might be shocking also that you, like you said, you're kind of saying it because it's like a cry for help.
Yeah.
In a way, I need help.
Right. Right.
It's horrible. So we get there. It seemed like it took forever. And the coach came out and met us. And then they walk you in and they tell you again that they tried everything. And then they said, do you want to see him? And we were like, yes. I'll just never forget that. I'll never forget going in that room.
Yeah.
Because you're not supposed to see your child like that.
No, you're not. You're not. Yeah.
He looked so beautiful still.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget his hands. They were beautiful.
Yeah.
But they let us stay as long as we needed to. And then they told us that we had to, wait for the quarter to get there and take him.
Right. I'm glad you got some time with him. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And his girlfriend was there with you this whole time too?
Yeah. It was my husband, his girlfriend, and me. And then some of the players were allowed to come in, his good friends, his roommates.
Yeah. Because it was just sudden on the field, right? Just sudden?
He collapsed on the field running. They were doing sprints.
Mm-hmm. And
he collapsed. And one thing is that people told us that he was leading the pack that day.
Yeah.
He had gotten there early to work harder on fielding, and that he was fine. He was perfectly healthy. He was running. He was leading the pack. The guy running with him, his partner, he said that the last sprint, they turned around and Parker looked at him and Parker said, "Are you ready?" And the guy said, "Yep." And he said they took off and he looked and Parker wasn't beside him. And he turned around and Parker was collapsed on the ground.
Yeah.
And so they all went to him and, they called 911. They tried CPR. The coach did CPR. And I think they would have got an AED. I'm not sure if they used it or not.
Yeah.
Ambulance was really close. So small school, small town. But I don't know. It was just sudden cardiac arrest.
Right.
We don't know why. We've had genetics looked at it. There's no genetic component for what he had. I don't guess we'll ever know why.
I know. That's so hard, isn't it? Not knowing at all why, and it just doesn't make any sense, right?
No.
You want it to make sense. You want there to be some sort of reason that it would have happened. I feel like. Yeah,
and people will say to me, "Well, did you know he had a heart problem?" And I'm thinking, if I knew he had a heart problem, do you think I would have let him play baseball? I mean, you know what I mean? I'm just always shocked at what people say, It's just like I think they want to wrap their mind around a reason.
Yeah. I also feel like people say that because they so desperately don't want to think it could happen to them. And they feel like there has got to be some reason that I can say that this happened to Dixie and Parker. That I don't have, right? That makes it so it couldn't happen to me. I feel like there is a lot of that. Like, if they can come up with a reason, then they can justify how that thing can't happen to them.
I think so too. Like if they knew there was a genetic component, or if they knew that,
right. If someone in your family had some sort of thing that, you know what I mean? Yeah. And then it could be like, well, I don't have that in my family, so I don't have to worry about it. But when they don't have that, it's really hard. It's hard for people. Like,
it is.
I mean, even with our car accident, it was through no fault of Eric's, right? This woman just ran into us and just killed Andy. There's no reason behind it. So then it's scarier for people when they feel like, wow, there's nothing you could have done to prevent it. Right. And I would say in both of our cases, there was like nothing we could have done really to prevent it. And that makes it scarier.
Right. I often think the only way I could have prevented it is if he had symptoms.
Right.
If he just said to me, I am so tired, I can barely go.
Right.
Or if he just said to me, my heart's racing, or if he just said, I feel dizzy, but he never said any of those things. And we used to get EKGs we'd ask for an EKG because my husband does have a heart problem, but it was a different thing. It's a different thing.
Okay.
My husband's is more of a slow progressive thing, which actually got worse after losing Parker.
Yeah.
He, this was a sudden cardiac arrest. So it was.
Yeah. Just no warning at all.
Right. Right. Then we had to drive back, and that was a long drive. And going into his room at school was just, it was awful. It was so surreal. He had all of he was Parker. Yeah. His room was neat as a pin. He had his clothes for the afternoon laid out. He had the day marked off the calendar because that was how he lived his life.
Yeah.
And there was not a thing out of place. He was neat as, it was just seeing his clothes laid out for the afternoon. I'll never forget that. Because it was horrible.
Right. Right.
We had to drive back, and then you start the planning, Yeah. And he had a huge turnout for his funeral. People we were just amazed by the love and support of the community. Mm-hmm. But that all disappears after a while, except for the few, and the few are precious. And I've heard you say that.
Yes.
The few are precious, right?
Yeah. The few are precious. Yes, absolutely. And I don't even think they realize how precious they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think they do.
And then I sort of went off. I couldn't get out of bed for a long time, and I got sick physically after that. I had several serious illnesses. I was a mess, and I didn't want to live, I didn't want to live. And I have another son who's beautiful, and I love him so much.
Yeah.
I just adore him and love him. And I know that people don't understand that. They don't understand how you could have those thoughts, those dark thoughts, and still have a son here that you love so much. But it's not uncommon, I have found out. So.
Not at all. I think you have kind of one foot in heaven a little bit, right? You just feel like you're just kind of on that cusp there. And a lot of it, what I would feel like too is, I had other kids here, obviously, but in some ways you feel like you're the mom and you're supposed to like take care of your kids. And like, who's taking care of Andy? Who's taking care of Parker? And like, you know what? I can leave Eric here and he can take care of the other two, but I'll just go on and take care of Andy up in heaven, right? That's what it feels like. Yeah. Like you divide and conquer all the time as parents. Like, just let me divide and conquer, which seems like such a silly thing to say, but it really does feel that way a little bit. Like, no, if I go and just I'm with Andy, there's still plenty of other people here to take care of the other kids, right?
Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's exactly it. And my son was already had a family, you know,
Right.
a little girl, which Parker was able to meet his first daughter.
Oh, that's good.
She was born on February 7th and Parker passed on March 29th. So, but he was able to hold her. We have a picture of that. But my older son just misses him so much and just really misses the influence and impact he would have on his kids, because he would have been a fantastic uncle, because he's very playful. He was like a kid, like a big kid.
Yeah.
So he misses him so much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we talked a little earlier about how you had worked as a counselor, but Parker's death changed that for you too.
Yes, I was a school counselor in private practice. My private practice was going very well. But when I lost Parker, I worked mainly with kids and adolescents, a few adults. And I had to shut it down. I just couldn't do it because I was very cognizant of the fact that I couldn't do it well.
Yeah.
I would be too tearful, too sorrowful, in too much pain. And that one of the reasons that I was able to be a good therapist was that I was pretty healthy mentally. Mm-hmm. And I was the calming person. I was I could be that steady person. And so I knew at that point I couldn't be.
Right.
So I shut it down.
You have to be able to give something when you're caring for people like that. You have to have this well that you can kind of give from. And when you feel like it's dry for you, personally, you feel like you have nothing that you can give. Yeah. Then I think that is what you oftentimes need to do. It's what I needed to do, right? It's why I took so much time from doing pediatrics. Like, I just didn't feel like I had anything to give at that moment, at that point in time. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And, also I didn't want to ever make it about me. I thought, what if my face shows that all of a sudden I'm flustered, or what if I start to tear up, I just was really thinking about that, how that would be. Right. So I decided I would shut it down and not do that for.
Yeah. I think there are a couple ways to do it, right? I mean, there are certainly people that do work, and what they probably do, and what I have found that I have done, is I put on the mask.
Yes.
And I put on the Dr. Larson mask, and they don't see the Marcy behind it. They see the Dr. Larson mask. They see what I want to put out there. And for a time, I couldn't do that I wasn't even kind of healthy enough or able to put on a mask. But now I've gotten to the point where I do. And I'm not always happy with the fact that I feel like I am putting on a mask to do my job, because I sometimes wish I didn't have to. But sometimes you do.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I said I'll close it for now, and maybe someday I'll be able to do it again. And I have gone back to work part-time as a school counselor. And I tell you, I'm just really grateful for the kids and that, because they're just, and the people, they're just so kind. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good start for me.
Right. That's like me. I did just kind of some administrative work for a little while before I could go back to practice. And then what's funny is then I got to the point where I couldn't do administrative work anymore because I thought it seemed just dumb, and then I couldn't. So it's just what you need at the time. It's just different, what you can do at the time.
Exactly.
So I wanted to talk about this with you, about grief, about just the kind of the concept of grief. You and I have discussed this a little bit in the past about how the word almost has changed in recent years.
Yeah, I kind of have this thing about it. And I know that some people might not agree with me, and that's okay. Yeah. But I think grief has been watered down. Yeah. Because of during COVID and things like that. I think now people will say that they grieve that they couldn't go to the prom, or they grieve that they loss of a job, or they grieve that they can't go out to restaurants, And I'm thinking, okay, this has gone way too far. Right. You're grieving that you can't go eat out, because losing a child that's a human being. Yeah. That is your future. That's your life. That's your world. You cannot compare the loss of a child to the fact that you are not going to be able to eat out for a while.
Yeah.
And so I kept seeing this being used all the time. And I just reject it. I just think, no, that can't be. And what we're doing by doing that is we're really harming people who are grieving the loss of someone a person that's so important to them.
Yeah. I just 100% agree. And I have said, and I've definitely said it on the podcast, during this time of COVID, everybody's grieving something. And that is true. Everyone is grieving something. But you're right in that it's too bad that that's the word that's used, because then it makes what we're going through seem less in some ways. I mean, I mentioned this to you that the pandemic for us, it was really challenging because there were a lot of people who had these grand plans that they were going to honor Andy in certain ways. So Andy always played baseball every year. Like Parker, not nearly as good as Parker. He never would have gotten to do anything. Although he was planning to play high school baseball, and he was so excited because he told me he was going to be a 2-sport athlete in high school because he was going to play soccer and baseball. And it was only because he was in a small high school that didn't have very good sports that he could be a 2-sport athlete, because otherwise he would have never made both of those teams. But he was so excited about it. But anyway, they had said they're making this plaque, and we're submitting a picture and doing all of this stuff. And we didn't do it. So he died in August. The baseball season here was just always in the spring. And the next spring, it was too painful for us to do. Peter was still playing ball on the fields. For him to walk past a picture of his brother every day was going to be too difficult, whatever. So that was spring 2019. So that meant it was planning to happen spring 2020. And we all know what happened in spring 2020.
Right.
The pandemic happened, and we didn't hear a thing from anybody, because the baseball season was canceled. The next year, the baseball season happened, but by then no one remembered the promise that they had made to us, And and I think about his middle school was going to have this, they were going to have a bench, they were going to have this nice little area to honor Andy, and the teachers were very excited about it. And I said, this is going to be a little too hard for Peter while he's in that school, because he started that middle school right when Andy died. He said, I had talked to Peter about it. He said it was too hard for him to see a reminder like that. So it was going to be, as soon as Peter was done with middle school, then they were going to do this. Well, 2 months before Peter ended middle school, the pandemic hit, and I didn't hear anything from anybody. So it's that I think we all got a little bit, as grievers, got a little bit lost in the shuffle, because everyone started turning in and looking at their own losses, which I understand are difficult for people. But then we kind of got forgotten a little bit.
Yeah. I hope that they honor their promises to you and their ideas. I hope that they do follow through. I don't think that, the years for us.
Yeah, I know.
If they said to you this year, we're going to do it, you would, if you felt like you could handle it, it would still be.
I would love that. But yet I don't have the courage to ask, because I'm sure I could ask and they would be like, oh, I'm so sorry we forgot. We'll definitely do that. But I just don't want to have to ask. And since I'm not going to ask, I feel like it's not going to happen, because now it's been another couple years and I just don't think it will happen.
Yeah.
And the other big thing that was canceled that is still happening is there was supposed to be an Andy Larson memorial concert. And the very first one, and it was canceled. I mean, it was literally about a week after everything shut down. That was supposed to happen. So that was canceled. That was the first thing to cancel, because that was March of 2020. And that is happening this next March. So there will be, that concert will happen, and the St. John's Men and Boys Choir is coming from England to sing, just as they had planned. So, because they had sent someone over and they went over stuff. I mean, I was talking to this, person from St. John's there about all the logistics. We had sold all the tickets. We had done everything, and so that will happen now, and I'm glad that will happen. But it does seem like a lot of things just got overlooked.
Yeah. Yeah. And see, you have a true loss in your son, Andy, and then that adds to your pain.
Right.
It just kind of piles on the pain.
Yeah. 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 I remember somebody saying something, they were asking how I was or something, and they made some sort of joke about how everyone is faking it or something. And I just looked at him and I said, well, because this is, it was several months into the pandemic. And I said, well, I've been doing this for 2 years. Because I just thought, please don't put me in the same boat.
No.
So many people talked about how 2020 was like the worst year ever. And then it was like, well, maybe 2021 is just as bad. And that doesn't hold a candle to what happened to me in 2018 or you in 2019. Not even close. So it's so hard as a grieving person, because then you feel like you can't even say it because it feels selfish, right? Like you had said, I don't even know if we should have this conversation on the podcast. And I said, I don't care. I think we should have this conversation on the podcast because I think it is important for people to realize that there's a real difference.
Yeah, there is a big difference. And what they don't understand is that so we were all already in so much pain.
Yeah.
That being isolated, we're already isolated. Yeah. Especially parents of children that have passed are extremely isolated.
Yeah.
Because, people are so uncomfortable with it.
Right.
And
I do have to say, I mean, there were a few little blessings of the pandemic in that way. In that, not that this was good, that I was isolating, but I was terribly isolating. And then suddenly, we're not having church and we're doing church online. And then I was like, cool, because now I don't have to go and face people and I can isolate and people aren't looking at you like, oh, you're still just sitting in the house. You're not coming out. You won't do this. You won't do that, because nothing was happening anyway. So in that, it was a great excuse.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in some ways too, it didn't push me to try to get a little bit better, right? Because I think your friends don't maybe notice.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I know. And I think a lot of my listeners will agree and maybe make some people think a little bit about that. And just even about how you use that word. And I don't know, I wish there was a different word.
Yeah, I think I said you could be sad and you could be disappointed that you didn't get to do certain things.
Yeah.
But it's not the same as grieving the loss of a person that you love so much, And I just want people to understand that they're watering that word down a bit.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's why I really like to use the word lament in some of these situations.
Yes.
Because I feel like my loss of Andy, I show lament. I mean, I am broken and torn apart. And and that's a word that I don't think anyone would say, I lament the loss of prom. Right?
Right.
They're not going to use that word for that. They'll say grieve, but they won't say lament. And so I've taken it upon myself to try to use the word a little bit more, because I feel like that expresses the gravity of it a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It was in one of my first support groups that I went to that they used the word lament. And I thought, that's what this is. That's what this truly is. Mm-hmm.
Well, I know you talk about the book, Nicholas Wolterstorff.
Yeah,
is that how you say it?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody gave you that book, Lament for a Son.
Yeah.
And I love that book. I've read it several times, and he's so right in that book in so many places. But that's what you're doing. We're lamenting. This is a pain beyond anything you could ever imagine. I could have never imagined it. And I had lost both my parents, and I was very close to them. So I could have never known that there was pain like this.
No.
That just, you wake up with it, you go to bed with it, you carry it with you all day,
Yeah.
It's just, it never leaves you.
And I just love that image of feeling like you're torn apart, because that is what it
Yes.
is. You feel like you are just ripped apart and aren't at all even the same person that you used to be.
No, because before you didn't know the worst thing that could ever happen to you. You didn't know. So you were in this world of thinking that I can find order for some loss. Like when you lose you lost your mother very young.
I did. And
that's different.
But still, it was in the right order. Right?
Right.
She was 42 years old. I was 21 years old. And that was way too early. Obviously, younger than I am now by quite a bit now. But for me, it was in the right order.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for my grandmother, obviously, it wasn't to lose her daughter.
Right.
But for me,
right.
it was young and it was tragic and was horrible, but it was in the right order.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just so different, and it's just hard to explain to people. I don't think they get that it never leaves you. That's what I don't think they get,
so.
Because they compare it to the grief that they know, which is not an out of order loss.
Right.
So they are like, okay, you can put that aside for a bit, but you never do. It's always right here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it is always right there. And that's hard. And honestly, in some ways, for me, recently, I've had more trouble. Like I told my therapist just today, I said, I feel like I'm going backwards. I know I'm not, but I feel like I'm going backwards. And she said, You're not going backwards. I said, I know. And I tell people you're not going backwards, but I feel that way. I feel like I am, because I've put an expectation on myself even that others think I should be better. So I feel like I think I should be better. And when I cannot meet that expectation, it makes me feel like I'm a failure and I'm going backwards.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It does,
and
for sure.
It's sad that I put those expectations on myself, but I think we all do it.
Yeah. But growth for us is so different than other people, right? Like even when I was a therapist and I would measure growth for people, but for us, it's so much slower, and it's not going to ever be one way, linear. It's going to be like, we might have a little growth and then we're going to, it's just more like this.
Yeah. I like that. Like a zigzag kind of pattern.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Definitely. And that's okay. What I've come to do is to say, it's okay. It's okay that I'm going to be broken the rest of my life. I don't want to be. I wish it was different, but I can't be. I've said to people, I can't be anything than what I am.
Right.
So you either accept me for this or not, but I can still love you. I can still care for you. My older son is just so sweet, and he took me out to eat lunch on my birthday,
mm-hmm.
and he wrote me a card, and in it he said something that was just beautiful. He said, "Today, your birthday will never be the same for you, Mom, and I know that."
Yeah.
He said, "But that's okay because," and he said, "We will both be sad, but that's okay because that's how much we love Parker."
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you.
That is just a beautiful way to think of it. I love that.
It is. That card means more to me than he'll ever know.
Yeah.
Because I want more than anything to still be a good mother to him.
Right. And for him to know that.
He's a grown man.
Yeah.
But
but you're still his mama. Mm-hmm.
That's right. Always.
Yeah. And you're still Parker's mama too.
I'm still Parker's mama, and I'm so proud of him, and I'm still a mama bear,
That's right.
Right? We never stop being a mama bear.
No.
So I protect his memory, and I share a lot of quotes and pictures and memories and things like that. And I think sometimes people judge that, but I don't care because it's my life, and it's hard, and I have to live it, and they don't.
Right. And you just don't want him forgotten. And
right.
I know it makes other people uncomfortable when you keep bringing him up, but it's what we need to do.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, I do not expect other people who have two kids that are living to only talk about one of them.
Right.
I would not judge them if they would, if they want to talk about both kids and not just the one. I wouldn't put that sort of limit on them. So it's interesting that people tend to put that limit on grieving parents. That like
They
you
do.
can only talk about your living children now. Your living
Right.
children are your life. Your dead child is part of your past. Please just focus on the ones now. Like, that's ridiculous. I would never do
Yeah.
that to other people.
Yeah.
So why they do that?
I don't know. I've sat in a room where they've talked about my dad, my mom, other relatives that have passed, and don't mention Parker.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, you're really not going to talk about Parker? It's unbelievable, but
Yeah.
nothing surprises me anymore.
I think they think that if they bring up Parker, they will hurt you. And they don't
Yeah.
realize that not bringing up Parker hurts you.
Yeah.
And you may cry a bit if they bring up Parker, but it's nothing compared to that bitterness that you feel when they don't.
Yeah. Yeah. It's rich. One only hurts for it always hurts, but one hurts for those moments while you're crying.
Right.
It feels good to release that.
Yeah.
The other one hurts forever.
And it's funny how that crying really can be a release and feel good sometimes. Like, so just this week, I wanted to replant some flowers at Aunt Andy's grave. I wanted to take out the marigolds that I had and put in some mums for fall. And I'm in the parking lot and I'm upset about doing it because I never like to do it, right? No one should have to go buy flowers for their son's grave.
Right.
And I'm in the parking lot and I get a text from the mom of Andy's best friend because he's gone off to Michigan State. And she was just talking about how she was thinking about last year at this time and about senior pictures and how she never posted any senior pictures of her son online because she knew I couldn't.
Wow.
So she was just thinking about it. And Yoni he's at Michigan State and he's been having a little bit of a hard time. Because, it's weird because Andy was going into the 9th grade. They were going into the 9th grade, but Andy loved Michigan State. And now Yoni is at Michigan State, and he feels like Andy should be there with him at Michigan State. So it's been, and they used to, like, if we had an extra basketball ticket, we would bring Yoni. And, like, he never had done anything Michigan State related without Andy. So it's been a struggle for him to do this without him when he feels like he should be there, even though it's been 4 years, right? Yeah. So I'm in the parking lot and she sends me this message and now I have to go buy flowers. So I have to go in and and the woman asked me if I need help and I'm crying and I told her because I can't be too big because I'm planting them, but it can't be out more than 12 inches. And so she's helping me find the right size. And then I'm having to tell her, it's for my son's grave. And then I'm leaving the store and I thought, I wonder what that mom is doing right now. So I asked her if she could meet me at the cemetery to plant those.
You did?
I did.
Oh, wow.
I did. And she was home and they live super close to the cemetery. And so she came over and we planted those flowers together. And I cried and she cried. And I left and I felt so much better.
Yeah.
Having cried with her. I was just a little bit lighter. And, no one would understand that. And I don't think she understood that even, that I actually felt better because I'm pretty sure she felt worse, after crying with me for a bit. But it really took some weight off. And she said, I went home and I just cried and I feel so bad that you're going through all of this. And I said, I have to tell you, I went home and I felt a little bit better. So thank you for doing that for me. Because it didn't make her feel better. And I'm sorry for that. But, it was nice to be able to have a little release. Yeah.
And you asked her, which took a lot of courage. And she said yes, which took a lot of courage. And then you're able to help each other that way, you know?
Yeah. And I know she reaches out because I know she struggles. She still struggles. Certainly seeing her son struggle as well.
Yeah.
So anyway, but it's just again a reminder that tears and crying can be really helpful and a release and make you feel a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah. And we can't help it, right? It is what it is. We're going to cry.
Yeah.
And that's okay because our sons were worth those tears. They're worth every tear.
They are. They're still worth every tear.
I want to talk about the things that have helped, which is your podcast, meeting you, online support groups.
Yeah.
And then especially a group that I meet with of 3 other moms on Fridays that are amazing. Just being in the company of other mothers who know this pain.
Yeah.
And let you be you and sit in that pain with you. We all do it together. Has just been the biggest help for me. And then there's a few friends that actually, like your friend that met you,
Yeah.
that could actually be in that dark place with you, that haven't gone through it, but they're willing to come close.
And that's so precious.
And that's precious.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you felt like you wanted to share today?
I think that's it.
I just love talking to you, Dixie, and getting to know Parker just a little bit better. I felt like I got to know things about him that I didn't know before. So I love that.
I really appreciate it so much. And you and your podcasts and just you have been so much of a help to me.
Well, thank you.
I can't thank you enough.
Thanks for listening. If you found this helpful or would like to support the podcast, please leave a 5-star rating and comment. To help financially, you can text Andy's Mom to the number 53555 or visit the donate page on andysmom.com. Your donations are secure and tax deductible, and we are now able to accept Venmo, PayPal, and Apple Pay. Always Andy's Mom is a registered 501c3 organization and can receive donations through smile.amazon.com, Thrivent Financial, and Benevity, amongst others. Marcy loves hearing from listeners. Please feel free to reach out to her via email at marcy@andysmom.com. Also, be sure to sign up for the email list to receive weekly updates as well as pictures of all of Marcy's guests and their children. Together, let's work to inspire hope, one day at a time.